Your source for all things Texas Tech. This is the Ask Level Podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hey, what's happening? Welcome into episode number 40. We've hit the big 4-0 for the Ask Level Podcast with Chris Level. I'm Chois Woodman. Chris, let's have a little fun today with this one.
It is Memorial Day weekend or on or just after. So I have a couple of things here. One, if you're hearing this and something big has happened with Texas Tech roster move, or realignment is dropped, just somebody's dropped in your league out of the sky, or there's some massive thing. We're trying to do this a bit early. You and I were both going to be out of pocket over the weekend, and so if we've missed something, we apologize. We're going to try to just talk big picture topics. I'll also tell you that you're probably listening to this, and I have just turned 50 years old.
Woo! Oh,
yeah, that's right. So stop the presses. I have just turned 50 years old.
I don't even know if I can count that high.
Watch your mouth. I'm a very young 50 though. Like I went to Vegas one time, and my wife and I saw a comedian, Louis Anderson, who I think is still with us. I'm not sure. That's one of those like they're alive. I'm not sure. Yeah. And
he's the one with the chubby guy with the gap in his teeth, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
weird voice. Yeah,
that's right.
Okay.
And his one of the jokes that he said, he's like, I'm just at the age where I just only age by a decade at a time. So I'm 40 all the way up until I'm 50, and then I'm 50 all the way up until I'm 60.
That's fair.
Like I'm not getting into this 48 or 49. No, I'm still 40 now. Now we've reset the clock, so I guess I'll be 50 for the next 9 years and 364 days.
Awesome.
So how about that?
Well, happy birthday.
Oh, well, thank you very much. You know what? And while I'm trying to think of a way to top 5 sporting, I'll do one per decade of my entire life to this point.
Oh, I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. This is just personal memories.
Mm-hmm.
The one of the first, I guess, memories I had as a sports fan, like big time, was I would have been in like middle school or young high school age. I would have been in like 8th or 9th grade, or maybe even 7th grade. But and this would be Googleable. We could go back and look this up. But the Dallas Mavericks playing in Reunion Arena, and this was the Showtime Lakers, and they took Magic Johnson and James Worthy and Kareem and all that, and they went to 7 games, and I was at game 6, which at the time, this was, the Mavericks were, expansion franchise. They were terrible.
Yeah.
And, but I that was my introduction really to big time basketball, because that was, and like the Mavericks were Rolando Blackman and Mark Aguirre and Sam Perkins and Roy Tarpley and James Donaldson, Derek Harper. I can remember it vividly. But they went to 7 games of the Western Conference Finals before they lost out to the Lakers at the Forum, which is still standing. Reunion Arena is not, where the Mavericks used to play. That was big time for me, because that was peak professional sports, biggest stage. I would get to go to the NBA Finals when the Mavericks lost to the Heat in 2006. Got to go to a finals game.
Okay.
Rangers, did watch them lose. I actually were sitting I believe it was the San Francisco Giant family and friends section of the stadium was literally probably 4 rows behind me. This would have been 2010, I think, and Cliff Lee was on the mound, and I'm thinking, you're going to extend the series, you're going to, and it just wasn't. It wasn't.
Yeah, Bruce Bochy on the other sideline or other dugout that time.
I think it was.
Yeah,
it was. But I watched another team celebrate on my team's stadium. That was
That's
like
tough.
that was one of those, though. We talked last week in the last podcast about like how unexpected runs. That was unexpected. I wasn't really like broken up. It was the next year when the Cardinals did their thing and Nelson Cruz couldn't catch a fly. That was the one that stung, because that was one where you were.
It's still twisted in the gut right now. I mean, it's still,
and you were better. I think everybody would have said you were better, but that's not really what counts. You didn't win it. Those are some of my peak. I never got to go to a Super Bowl, but I was in late high school and kind of young college kid at the time frame when the Cowboys were just rolling. I mean, and all the guys I was playing college basketball with, they were playing the video games and all that. And I remember one of my guys, we had 2-story dorm, and he comes out of his dorm room. He's like, "I just beat Chip again, man. Whenever you get Timmett, give it to Emmett." And he would just, Emmett Smith would just run wild on the, but I didn't get to go to any of that, but that was a big time era. But that was my professional sports like memories, that, all that. But then obviously with the Red Raiders, man, 08 and all the bowl games and the Final Four run. But it's fun being a sports fan. But I've got 50 years worth now, I guess.
Quite a bit. That's you've gotten to.
I know. I do have to
cover a lot.
When I'm talking 80s, late 80s, and
so 88, is that what I found? I think that was 88.
Is that I knew it was late 80s. Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think and save the jokes, people, but the Mavericks were legit at the time. They were. I mean, they just could never get past one of the best teams in existence. And then obviously that they had to break that team up, and they traded Mark Aguirre for Adrian Dantley, and it kind of just fizzled. Roy Tarpley liked cocaine better than basketball, and away it went. But so anyway,
I was -2 in 1988. So.
Yeah, there you go. So but I still remember all that stuff like it was yesterday. It kind of molds you into, for sure, who you are when your experiences as a kid. So anyway, there you go.
Yeah, the sports fandom, it does mold you, and probably those things probably gave you reason to want to work in sports too.
Sure. It's the juice, man.
The juice, yeah.
It's the juice. I tell people that all the time. What we do as a broadcaster, what we do as a pregame guy, as a talk show guy, as a podcast guy, as I don't know, whatever you touch. There's just nothing like being in a full house. At whatever level it is, and there's just some energy in that, and you see people act differently in that venue and in that setting, whether it's an arena or stadium or whatever. They act differently in that venue than they would in any other place in the world. And we see the best and the worst of people.
For sure.
Yeah, but it's the energy that creates the juice, man, and that's what's so fun about being around sports, and I've never lost that.
Well, we're on the 50 years of memories. What is that? Well, what is that moment for you, like where it's above all else when it comes to the juice in the arena or the stadium? What was the biggest buzz feeling that you remember?
I don't want to get caught up in the recency bias.
I think it's the same.
Yeah, well, for me, it was one of two things, and it was also because these were personal. Yeah, I guess I was personally invested both times. But it's either sitting there in Minneapolis, playing for a national championship, or is when Crabtree breaks free, kind of thing. And I mean, the world stops. My world stops. Your world stops. Sure. Now, not everybody's did, but when you are either there or you're invested emotionally, or you're it's the highest of highs, or you just like it's peak sadness or disappointment, or just like sports sad, however you want to phrase it. Yeah. There's just and that's why we love it so much. That's why we keep coming back. It's like this girlfriend we can't break up with. We know she's bad for us sometimes.
She gonna hurt us.
Yeah, and we know she's maybe like cheating on us a little bit, but gosh, we love her. And we're just like, yes, I'd like to go on another date with you, even though I know how this is going to end at some point. But it's just like this mistress, right? But that's what we just can't get enough of the heartbreak, really, because the fun times outweigh them, and it's like it's fun to emotionally invest into. But those are probably my two. I don't know if those were, if one of those beats the other, I don't know, but
no, I mean both of them. I still, just the thought of it, I mean, can make the hair stand on end a little bit of remembering those moments. But just, I remember sitting there in the arena in Minneapolis, and when it clicked in my brain, you're going to go play for a national championship like that. Yeah. And just the theatrics of everything too. It's like, we're here. It's so amazing to be part of that when you have the vested interest. So no, mine would be the same, but those are so cool, those moments. And we've been blessed. I know people always want more and you always thirst for more, but we've been blessed. Anybody that's been a Tech fan for the last 20 or 30 years, you've had some great moments and some fun atmospheres to be in.
Yeah, and I've never gone to Omaha, and I don't, obviously the Red Raiders, once they've gotten to Omaha, I've not had a ton of success. The wins have been few and far between. But when you beat, was it College of Charleston? I was there at Danlaw that
was
day,
a buzzing environment
when you punched your first ticket. But I'm sorry, but there's just really nothing like being in front of 75,000 people. And you said I was in the arena. It ain't no arena. It takes a golf cart. To get from one, a stadium, an NFL stadium, and you're like, they're all here, and you're on literally on this stage. We say biggest stage in sports. Well, no, I mean
stage.
All the players on the bench and coaches are sitting like below, and you're looking up because it's a stage. I was just like, oh, this is wild. But okay, so some questions. For you. So enough about my me getting old. But we had somebody, Coach Lovern, works over at Lubbock Cooper, does the coach of the Lady Pirates. They lost in the state championship game this year in San Antonio. So speaking of, that was in the Alamo Dome. I was fortunate enough to be a part of the semifinal broadcast, and they punched their ticket there. But had to come back for Texas Tech and Oklahoma State that Saturday, and they ended up. But anyway, he submitted a question. Was it 2-3 weeks ago? And it was your top 5 Tech Hoopers of all time. And these are fun questions to ask because there's no wrong answers, and I'm going to put some caveats on it because I can do whatever I want, and so I'm going
50. I can do whatever I want.
Exactly. Yes. Because I'm only going to talk about guys from my era because I don't think it's hard to talk about, with pre-3-point line, and the game has changed. It's officially different. You were in different conferences and all that. So I'll just kind of go back to, to the, early to mid 90s up until present day time.
Yeah. And that's not a slight to Rick Bullock or Double
not at all.
Or anything.
I just
like
didn't see them.
Exactly.
So I would be simply taking someone else's word for it. And I'd rather give Coach Lovern, my opinion on what I've seen.
Yep.
I have a starting 5, and I have a second 5 too.
Okay.
So exactly.
Okay. I like it.
And I even kind of went a bit with the third team as well, but I'm not going to get into the weeds there. Then I have a football question here for you in a little bit too.
Okay.
My starters, my best 5, and again, there's no wrong answers here. This is my personal view of it. I wanted to look at multi-year guys that were here. I wanted to look at how successful were those teams. I wanted to look at when were you really at your best, and so there's some of that flavor in here. Okay. Jason Sasser,
it's great.
The Warrior. I mean, those mid 90s teams, that 95, 96 team. I was going to school at the time. They just came up short against Allen Iverson, and actually the only other loss they had, I bet you don't know that, was to, do you know who and which NBA player it was? It's way off the radar.
It was early on, right?
It was in December. It was at one of those
I'd known it at one point, but cannot remember right now.
I believe it was Eastern Washington, and it was a young man by the name of Earl Boykins.
Okay.
Who was a tiny little thing, but he was in the league. He was in the NBA for a long time. Anyway, Jason Sasser, Andre Emmett, I think one of the best scorers in Big 12 history, much less amazing. Texas Tech history. I think he made hang time and just ability to kind of draw contact, and he was king of the mid range. I mean, just and obviously he left us way too soon, but no top 5 basketball players within the last 30 years list is complete without Andre Emmett's name on it.
Agreed. He's my personal favorite on.
Okay,
it's
there
just
you go.
like grew up on just loving Emmett.
Ronald Ross, again, walk on to just grinder. Was one of the best two-way players you'd ever have. Came back as an assistant or graduate assistant years later. You played in plenty of NCAA tournaments with Ronald Ross, and I just think Coach Knight was playing like 7 dudes on some of those teams because Ronald Ross never came off the floor. him and Jay Jackson and Martin Zeno, those guys were playing like 35 minutes a night. I think Ross, though, was the best two-way player of that group. I think he was your culture. Then he took a lot of guff from Bob Knight. So
and he had a pretty famous shot to send you to the Sweet 16 too against Gonzaga. So
yes, he did.
Big one.
Keenan Evans. I think Keenan Evans is one of the best players, period, that has ever played here that doesn't get enough credit. And I would say to anybody that wants to argue with me, if he doesn't bang up his foot, his toe in Waco, Texas on a random night, he not only is Conference Player of the Year, but you also win the Big 12 championship.
Yeah.
And I will fight tooth and nail to anybody that wants to argue with me on that, because that was an Elite 8 year for that team and that player and all that. And as soon as that happened, he misses a period of time, and they have to inject him at halftime into his big toe. They gave him an injection that would only last about 30 minutes. So he's trying to gut it out in the first half and just play. Well, it's bothering, because people will tell you it's like a turf toe injury, which is like a bone bruise. It's extremely painful, especially for a basketball player or a running back, which is when you hear this a lot. It has nothing to do with actual turf, just so you know. That's what somebody called it years ago. But they had like a 30-minute window, and so the doc would go into the locker room and it just extremely painful. But he didn't want to get surgery because he wanted to finish out the season, and they went all the way to the Elite 8, and he was their best player, and he was far less than 100% toward the March and into April and all the meaningful basketball, and it just sucked because I think it cost him a player of the year and a conference championship. And maybe even you beat Jalen Brunson and Villanova there in Boston that weekend. Although that team was pretty good, they went on to win the Natty.
That one was one of the best college basketball teams we've seen in a while.
That
was a great team.
But
you might not have to play them if Keenan is healthy. You might not play them until the Final Four of the.
You would have been seeded better potentially, and all that stuff. But anyway, I just have a healthier amount of respect for Keenan Evans, and then Jarrett Culver. I mean, because he was a Player of the Year, he was part of a conference championship, he was part of a Final Four team, he was also part of the Elite 8 team the year before as a reserve. He's his legacy here is I would say quite safe.
I would say so too.
Anyway, the other names, and I'm not going to spend too much time on these, but Tony Battie, Darvin Ham, part of the 96 team. One's a lottery pick, one's the head coach of the Lakers. If you don't know who they are, Google them. They were phenomenal. Tariq Owens, just because I think he was a 1-year guy, and yet you played for, and if his ankle doesn't get hurt in the semifinal game, I think you cut down the nets and you're a national champion. He was a culture guy. He was a whatever. Jay Jackson, who I mentioned a while ago. And here's you one that you may not have thought of. I actually played against this guy in junior college. This is before the 95, 96 team. So this may have been like a 94 team.
Is it? I might guess at it. Lance Hughes?
No, it's not
No.
Lance Hughes.
Okay.
And Lance was very good.
Right.
This was a guy that was an NBA guy. This was a guy, your team wasn't great yet. He was one of the most talented guys I've ever seen. And he was kind of a throwback, or he was kind of way ahead of his time. And his name was Mark Davis. Came from Howard College.
Yeah.
And he's like your prototypical. He's how all players are now in the NBA. He just happened to be that 30 years ago. But he was a 6'6", 6'7". I can do anything you want me to do on the basketball court guy. I can guard all 5 spots on the floor. I can shoot the 3. I can play point guard. I can play center. But I think he was a draft pick by the 76ers, if memory serves. And he was phenomenal. He was really, really good. So anyways, those are mine, Coach Lovern. So I don't know if Woodman has his own, but anyway, it'd be fun to hear what other people's thoughts were on that, but those are my thoughts.
Yeah, if you're commenting anywhere, I know you can watch us on YouTube or anything, you can drop it in the comments if you've got a top 5 you want to do so as well. Mine I've got a lot of similarities. The 3 for sure that I would have the same as you is Andre Emmett, Keenan Evans, Jarrett Culver. I guess I do have a little more recency bias. I would probably throw Tariq Owens on there just because of how huge he was for you on that national championship team. But I totally get the part of putting the guys that played here more than 1 year a little longer. And I'd probably, so I've got 4 of the same. Ronald Ross would be on my list too. That's a fairly small team that I'd put together, but yeah. One more that would probably be on my reserves list or next out is Rayford Young. I mean, he was a fireball too.
My other 3, or my third 5, these are the names I wrote down. Rayford Young, Sean Gay, which was a Gerald Myers guy. That's getting back in the 80s.
That is.
I followed that at Bubba Jennings.
Yeah.
And then Will Flemings, also a big time
for sure
conference guy. And then you forget about this one because he had so many guys around him. He was an NBA guy too. And he kind of carried it a bit when Sasser and Ham and those guys graduated. But Corey Carr.
Yeah.
Corey Carr was a Chicago Bull there for a period of time. It was a 2nd-round pick. And he was legit, man. I mean, he was legit. But I did have, Rayford Young's name down as well.
I mean, you've got a lot of basketball history, a lot of great guys that have been through. So it's not an easy thing to pick a top 5 for sure. But it was a fun one. Thanks to Coach Lovern for the question. I like it. But
yeah, fun conversation. And again, there's no right or wrong answers there. It's just my opinion. It doesn't mean that I'm right or that anybody else that has a different 5 would be wrong. But yeah, fun to talk about that. My next question is about football, and we'll get more to the time frame right now. As we have left spring, and we now are starting to see projections and things like that, and you're going to start to see a multitude of lists comes out. Quarterback has already come out on a list like this, but I guess my question is, just as it relates to Texas Tech football, what position group do you feel the best about heading into the summer months and like with fall camp nearing? Like where's my bread and butter? Like this group, I feel like really is just solid, like, and is maybe the best group on the team. And, I don't know. So your position group that you feel best about would be what, Choice?
Man, 2 answers came to mind, and they're both on the defensive side of the ball. One, your defensive line and your defensive backfield, I feel pretty darn good about both of those groupings. I guess I'll lean towards DBs just a little bit over D-line because of how much you've got returning. You got 2 potential NFL guys that chose to come back and say, hey, we're going to do this again and try to raise the stock and try to have a great season. And Rashad Williams and Malik Dunlap. Baskerville, heard nothing about good things about him since he's gotten on campus. He's got good length. Really like that. You get Rabbit, Adrian Taylor Demerson back on this squad. So I don't know how deep you are necessarily there. But your starters, your first grouping of guys is really solid for DBs. but D-line is really stout as well with some of those interior defensive linemen, all the stuff you got going on there, and then some pretty good prospects, at least at this point, for pass rusher on the D-line. I feel really good about either one of those groups. What about you?
And that's the beauty of these questions, because I was going to wait to see what you said, because I can make an argument. I really can make an argument. You know what? I'll make an argument for two different positions that you didn't even name being the best one on the team.
Okay.
And I think I can make an argument for it. And I think that's kind of speaks to maybe how good your team can be. Sure. I wouldn't have said DB just because I think there's a depth concern there.
Yeah, that's my concern.
And that's I just think if Kobe Minor was still here and you had a little bit more, because I think it goes from kind of old and starters and all that, and then you're going to true freshmen.
Sure.
And I think that's kind of the concern there with that. I don't think that's that way with D-line. Had you not said it, I probably would have argued and said D-line is the best position group on the team.
Okay.
However, that's not ironclad.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you two other positions though that I think I could walk away going, I feel the best about this over any position on the team. I think one of those is QB. Because if you told me last year you're going to keep two of these guys, I think we go, well, that's an upset.
Sure.
I mean, you kidding me? And I would have nothing against Donovan, but I would have, after we saw what Tyler did, and then we saw what Barron was, and knowing his classification,
right?
I would have ultimately said I would love to keep all three, and I'd love to let Donovan do some tight end or be wildcat quarterback or be a specialty guy.
Yep.
That would be me being selfish and greedy. But I would have said, if you're going to keep two at quarterback, I would have said Tyler and Barron. And this is what you have. And you now have gone through the spring, and you're past that. You're going to keep them here. I just think it's one hell of a 1-2 punch. We are biased. I get it. I'm not going to apologize for it. I know Oklahoma may feel a certain way about Jackson Arnold and about Dylan Gabriel. I know that Texas has got Quinn Ewers and Malik Murphy, and they've got Arch Manning, and they may go, you got Will Howard and whoever's backing up, Will Howard at Kansas State. I'm not trading. I think Bean and Daniels at Kansas are a legit nice combo to have. I'm not trading my dudes for anybody, man.
Yeah.
I just am not, and I think you're covered. You're totally covered, and I think you've got insurance there. I think you could have a draft pick there.
Mm-hmm.
I think you've got the future there. I just think that when I look at them as a 1 and a 1A, I think it's pretty damn fun, man. Because the last time I felt this good about it, honestly, with the 1-2 part of it, knowing that I knew I had something, not that I was hoping for it, was in 2005 when there was a run there whenever you had those seniors and you had but we hadn't really seen
we hadn't seen anything from the other guys.
The one that was waiting.
Right.
But when you had that 05 year and you won 9 games and you had Cody Hodges and Graham Harrell sitting there,
right,
I thought you got your right now and you got your future. And I feel like that's what you've got right now. And I think that, boy, it's funny because didn't Brett McMurphy say that you'd be playing Alabama in the Cotton Bowl? What'd you do in 2005? Just
played
saying.
Alabama in the Cotton Bowl. Yeah,
just saying. And Jamie Christensen kicked one of the ugliest field goals that I've ever seen.
Little jumper.
In my entire life.
You were talking about sports memories. That's one of the worst ones for me because we were sitting opposite of those field goal posts, like off in the corner a little bit. We see the little duck come off his foot. And we start celebrating in our section because
through the uprights, man.
Yeah, we thought, okay, it botched it, and we're celebrating, and then we see the Bama players run onto the field. And we're like, what? Oh, that. Yeah. So that was one of the biggest endorphin highs to drop you flat on your face moments I've ever had. Just think you got to overtime, then not. Yeah. So
the other position group that I really feel like I could make a case for of being the best on the team, or the one I feel the best about, and you can't really play the, well, I think that Steve Linton and Miles Cole are going to be really good, and you've got to be able to do that with this one here, and that's receiver, because they're all back.
Sure.
Brady Boyd may redshirt. Jaron Bradley is going to be a first or second team All Big 12 guy. You traded Trey Cleveland for Dre McCray, and everybody will tell you nationally and locally and everything, Dre McCray is going to cause some serious problems just from a speed standpoint.
Yep.
Miles Price, if he ever stays healthy, is a hell of a weapon. And then you've got like a guy like Loic, who lit it up at the back end of last year and then lit it up in the spring game. And we know that he's, if you want to look at like data and numbers and how people have recruited, he was extremely highly recruited, 4-star prospect out of Middle Odessa. And so, and Jerron Bradley, 4-star guy. Dre McCray, one of the top transfers out there by any sort of measure in the country.
Yep. So
I don't know. I just don't think you have any questions. Yeah, do they need to stay healthy? Sure, but it's like I'm not, and it's not like you're 8 deep where you're just like, oh god, we're just swimming in studs and all that. But I have zero question about my receiver room. Zero. So much so that you may take a guy last year that you kind of thought you were maybe going to lean on and put him on ice for a year, like Brady Boyd, and we're not even getting into the Coy Akins, who maybe could take a step.
Right.
You've got an old head like Xavier White.
There's
JJ Sparkman, who is just solid. And I feel like I've got a lot more clear-cut answers there than I do on the defensive line. When I'm really like, I'm listening to people, I'm thinking, well, these people really like Miles Cole or Steve Linton, and maybe Charles Esters and Duda Banks and these guys that we haven't seen do anything yet. Maybe the totality of them, maybe we're good enough that we can redshirt Joseph Adedire, a Dataray, whatever, however you say his last name. Maybe we have enough to redshirt him. So, I don't know. I could make those arguments. Did I do well? Did I put a dent in it? Did it make you see it differently?
Oh, you did. Well, receiver is the other one I kind of thought about, which is kind of crazy from where you were at this point last year, right? Because receiver is one of your big question marks at this point last year. So I think that, and some of it is still projecting forward for some of those guys, but I feel like if you can stay healthy, I mean, you saw really good finishes to the season for Fungi and Bradley, and the McCray part's going to be a big part of it. But there's probably not a position group that has more depth on the team than receiver.
Yeah, and it's somewhat proven. I think there's still some somewhat unprovenness to it, especially with like Dre McCray. You're waiting for Bradley to take this big step. You're waiting for Sparkman to kind of really get it and be consistent and all those things. But then you've got the young pieces there that are that I think could be fun. So I don't know. I just and then we're not even counting tight ends as part of that group. But when you talk about just pass catchers in general, it makes you kind of even feel a little bit better about it. But I could see the questions about Mason Tharp's health, and do you have enough total depth there, and can Baylor Cup take a next step and all that. Anyway, just fun conversation. No wrong answers. But the fact that we've talked about 4 different position groups here and made legit arguments for all of them. And I think they could all win an argument. It just depends on what flavor of ice cream do you want. Yep. I was always a mint chocolate chip guy. I knew Choice, you was always a cake batter guy, which I thought was very strange every time that I would take you to get ice cream. I thought that was very odd.
Still waiting on that to happen, but
I'm kidding.
Okay.
I'm kidding. Yes. Okay.
I should take you to get ice cream.
Speaking of, I know you've seen this, all the pictures and everywhere of the Dr. Pepper float with Bluebell.
100% in.
Yeah, I did check to make sure that was real. They tell me it is, but I haven't seen it in a store yet. So
I heard a rumor today as we're recording this that it's at one of the Uniteds in town. So I'm trying to get over there and test this out, because if you get one, buy me a gallon too. I'll come find you and get it. But yeah, I would you can give me that for my 50th birthday. All right, that sounds like a good
put a bow on it, and I'll provide the spoon.
All right.
Yeah,
That sounds good.
Well,
to
that
me.
was good. Hope
Yeah.
everybody had a happy Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
Hope everybody was safe. We'll try to maintain some regular, schedule here
Well,
throughout the summer months.
yeah, we'll hit some shows during the summer months. The news cycle will slow down some, but we'll definitely we'll be in and out on the shows this summer, but for sure hit it hard again during football season and be back at it. Level, it was fun. Enjoyed it. Have a happy birthday, Memorial Day, all of it, and we'll do it again soon.
Sounds good. See you, man. Keep hope alive, everybody.
Absolutely. That's Chris Level. I'm Chois Woodman. It's been the Ask Level podcast, brought to you by Double T 97.3.
You've been listening to the Ask Level podcast, powered by Double T 97.3.